You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're here on the unceded traditional territory of the Salish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. This is Bernadine Fox, here with my co-host for the week, Glen Grigg, bringing you Both Sides Now. Bernadine Fox. Has the COVID-19 pandemic left you feeling anxious, stressed, depressed, or disconnected? The Premier of BC, John Horgan, wants you to know that there is help for you. Today we have brought back Glen Grigg to not just talk about some of the common ways that COVID-19 is impacting on us, but also to answer your questions that you sent to us over the last week, and then outline resources the BC government has put together for British Columbians. So find a pencil and hang tight. We'll be right back.
Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the programming schedule at Co-op Radio has been altered. You may hear repeats of old programming, pre-recorded episodes, and special broadcasts overriding certain shows. Thank you for your listenership and patience during this time. And remember to wash your hands.
You're listening to Both Sides Now on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, here with co-host Glen Grigg to answer questions our listeners sent in on how COVID-19 is impacting on them, but also to outline some of the ways the BC government has established mental health resources to help us ride out this pandemic. Hi, Glen.
Hi. Good to be with you, Bernadine.
Well, we're really glad that you're back and able to be here to answer a bunch of questions for us, because our listeners had a lot of questions. So hopefully we'll get them all answered today. So how are you doing with the COVID-19 pandemic, Glen? How's it impacting on you?
Well, one of the emotions that's been coming up for me is I've been feeling like a bit of a cheater because it happens that at this stage in my life, my children have left home and I'm a widower, and so I have the house to myself, and in some ways that's kind of lonely, but it also means that I don't have the interpersonal stress of sharing space with another person. So that's very, very different for me. On the other hand, my work as a teacher and my work as a therapist has moved online, so I'm having a lot of human interaction almost all day long, every day.
In your home.
But it's different because it's not face-to-face. Everything's mediated by an electronic device, and that doesn't produce the same outcomes with respect to social needs that actually being with a human being is. So thanks for asking.
Right. Oh, you're welcome. So one of the first questions somebody sent in, and it was actually a common one, was she said, I didn't mind being isolated for 2 weeks, but it's getting harder. I'm snapping at people over the phone. I lack patience and I'm getting angry easy, and then I end up feeling guilty. How do I cope with this better?
Well, that's such a great question, and it's full of insight because one of the things that we know about human beings, that we're just wired for it, is that we have a fixed amount of stress tolerance. And I know many years ago, one of the things that we used to do for people who were under stressful situations, and especially sustained stressful situations, is we used to teach them to improve their stress tolerance. And one of the things we've learned about that is that that's not an easy thing to do, and you can't improve your stress tolerance too much.
So I hope that's making sense. I'm sorry. You can or you can't?
Cannot.
You cannot.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's like trying to get taller.
Right.
You can stand on your tiptoes, but there's a fixed place, and there's a line you reach, and that's all you can take.
Right.
It's not dissimilar from just the muscles in your body. How much weight can you lift? There's a limit to that. Mm-hmm. So what the questioner is describing is a phenomenon called cumulative stress. It's not like, some big car accident happened or something like that. But one stress adds up to another, And then the experience is you find some small thing that you could normally tolerate, and it just sends you internally into an emotional storm, and externally it's almost like you're the witness. You're watching yourself say things that you don't mean,
Mm-hmm.
and find yourself just emotionally. We describe that as being over the top.
Right.
So I'm taking a bit of time with this question, and it's such a good one because one of the things that will happen is that it's almost like we're using up the space inside ourselves for stress tolerance, and uh, you don't notice until it boils over the top.
So if we can't actually change our stress tolerance, then should we be creating more techniques or abilities to resolve the problems that we create by being impatient and intolerant and irritable and angry? Do we
Well,
need more interpersonal skills?
yeah, I'd say that that's headed down the right track. I would say the first thing is that if you blow up and say something hurtful to somebody else, the first person you need to be patient and tolerant with is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That you've hit a limit, and what you need to say to whoever you're with at that point is to say, I'm not at my best right now. I need to take a bit of time. And if you can, withdraw from that situation and then come back. And I would say, being very patient with yourself, understand that without noticing it, just like a long day of work, you come home, you don't know how tired you are till you sit down. You don't know how stressed you are until you have one of those episodes. But it does tell you that there's something you need to do. You need to, before you get overwhelmed by the stress, you need to start getting kind of systematic about doing those things that create anti stress, that bring your stress down, that invite you to relax and enjoy. And then what's going to automatically come from doing that is that you'll open up space for a little bit more stress tolerance.
Right. So, what are things that people can do that sort of create anti-stress? Then, what are those things?
Bernadine, I love this question because it's different for every person. Stress is one of those really interesting psychophysiological things where we can measure it with scientific instruments. And we know what stress is, we know the effect it has on your body, and we know the effect that it has on your mind. But every person is a, a little bit different from other people about what causes them stress. Some people are incredibly stressed by saying driving at highway speeds. It's terrifying to them. Other people, they can just relax into driving down the highway. Some people are bothered by being close to animals. Some people relax when they're close to animals. Everybody's different in that way. So the question we're all going to be asking ourselves when we're at home are, what are those things that bring me back to myself and that help me calm down and get relaxed and just disengage a little bit from the emotional stresses and the emotional demands of the day. Some people are going to need to sit down and play the piano. Other people
Mm-hmm.
are going to need to put their headphones on and listen to whatever music they want to listen to. Other people need to get on a trampoline and jump up high and really uh, get some physical stress out. Some people are going to need to sit in meditation. Some people are going to need to get to the internet and get one of those relaxation induction things and get themselves calmed down that way. Other
Or
times,
play some kind of arcade game on their phone and just sort of veg out on it.
that might make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Bernadine, I hope I'm not going into forbidden territory, but anyone who Googles your name will find beautiful art
Well,
that
thank
you
you.
created on and uh, getting into something that's creative, something that you know how to do.
Right.
Uh, it's a it's a great way to create room for stress.
So some people are not going to be well versed at how to deal with stress because they've maybe never had to do it before. We've never been in this situation where we've been living through a pandemic and locked in our homes, or basically
Yeah,
maybe not locked in our homes for most of us, but social distancing and very much curtailed in what we can and can't do. And so lots of folks are going to be needing to sort of explore as much as they can about what does help them
yeah,
de-stress during the day. So the
yeah,
second question I got was, um, somebody is engaged in social distancing and their parent is having a hard time with it. They're not living in the same house. The parent is living alone and is isolated. They're wanting to know what kinds of things can they do to support her um, when they can't go and do the normal things they used to do, like go for dinner or take her out shopping or go for
right.
coffee. So what kinds of things can people do? How do we become creative in this?
I think that's such a sharp question because what we want to do for the people we love and care about is we want to keep them safe.
Mhm.
And that seems pretty strange, if you're doing everything you can to keep yourself from being exposed to COVID-19. It's very, very tempting to say, well, you're a safe person, you're a person I trust. Couldn't you come within that range for me? And of course, we know it doesn't work that way. And especially what we've learned over the last 6 weeks is that people who have no symptoms at all and who think they haven't been exposed can be carriers of COVID 19. So I
Right.
want to start there and say that 2 meter or 6 foot zone that has to be maintained. And at the same time, um, there's kind of a psychological rule that goes with this that your head, the thinking part of your inner life, has a fabulous memory. It'll remember things for a long time and not give up on it. Emotional process, we might just refer to that as your heart is very, very forgetful. And so, one of the things about not being able to be with somebody is find a way to be in regular contact.
Right.
And that means that you might say, I'm going to put aside an hour a day and chat with that loved one who has to be in isolation. That's a great idea. And we can build on that and say, 3 5-minute phone calls a day might be just as impactful as one long one, or might be even
Yeah.
more impactful because those constant reminders that even what kind of happens inside many people, not everybody, but in many people, it's when the phone rings, they say, oh, somebody who's not here is thinking about me. And that has so much impact even before you answer the phone.
Mhm.
Similarly, we know that it's possible to send messages and cards via the internet. And people love getting a little email. And sometimes I think there's just a little bit of inhibition about sending an email or sending a message because we think it needs to be long and involved. It can be short and sweet.
Yeah, it can be a
Some
heart
researchers,
emoji.
yeah,
Yeah.
so some researchers who have looked into this have said that at least 80% of the impact is had as soon as you just see that name in your inbox or you feel the phone ring. Somebody's thinking about me. Another
I
one
just want to stop just for a moment because I'm thinking back with what you're saying about how when you smile at somebody or somebody smiles at you, it releases dopamine. So if people are sort of social distancing or isolating because they have pre-existing conditions and they are of a certain age, and that makes all of this that much more dangerous for them, or so we think at
yes,
this point, then even if what they're getting are cards and phone calls, they're not getting that smile, that look on someone's face when they see you and are happy to see you. So that brings up the whole thing of FaceTime and Zoom and the problems that older folks have with technology. It can be really frustrating and hard for them to
yeah.
navigate that. Do you know of anything that's happening out there? Probably you're the wrong person to ask. That's happening to help older folks manage the technology that helps them get through this a little bit better?
Well, I'm not the expert on this, and I don't have survey information, but I happen to know in my own community, and I also know that in Saskatchewan, where there's seniors in my family are in seniors care facilities, that they have a coordinator who's working with the seniors who are in those facilities, who's they're going around with a tablet or a laptop computer, and they're facilitating FaceTime and Zoom and Skype visits between
Mm-hmm.
family members and seniors who just by the nature of this disease, they are just so much more vulnerable than almost anyone else. So they cannot have visitors.
Right.
We can't claim that those kinds of contacts have the same impact as being face to face with someone else. I think some of the best researchers on this are music therapy people.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that music sent over the internet is impactful, but it doesn't have the same impact as live
No.
music. They
No.
also know that the recorded music has an impact. But that said, it still makes a difference. And uh, I think the message in these times is we can't do what we want to do, but we need to do what we can.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I suppose if necessary, people can drive over to their parents and stand on the sidewalk and wave and smile and be happy to see each other and still maintain a distance that keeps people safe. So that's good. We're going to just take a little break here, but don't go away because we're going to continue answering your questions about COVID-19 with Glen Grigg as soon as we come back.
Do you feel unsafe in your home?
You are not alone.
Transition houses offer free support and shelter for women and children.
We are here for you.
We are here for you.
We are here for you.
Make the call.
1-800-VICTIM-LINK.
1-800-563-0808.
bcsth.ca.
You're listening to Both Sides Now on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, here with my co-host, Glen Grigg, to answer your questions about mental health in the era of COVID-19. So, Glen, more questions. I'm so glad you're here. One of the ones that I got that kind of broke my heart in a little ways was they said I'm a loner and I may do without close friends by engaging in a lot of social activities that I can't do now. So is there a way to kind of make up for that in the middle of a pandemic without heading outside?
The question is, I don't have a lot of close friends, so I'm not going to be making a lot of phone calls. So I'm not going to be hearing from a lot of people. Is that?
Yes, but they filled it in by social activities. So maybe not a lot of close friends, but people that they engaged with on an ongoing basis out there in the world, that they cannot do that anymore. So now their world has been, from what I can tell, has been very narrowed down and shrunk. And so it's in the middle of a pandemic, it's kind of hard to recreate those social activities on the phone, or do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I got out of this.
And we've been chatting about how fabulous these questions are because they just go right to the heart of the psychology that we can use in this situation. Because what the questioner is saying is, I'm going to translate that a little bit and say you can have lots of stimulation when you're around the house. You can have the radio on, you can have the record player going, you can be watching the best TV that ever was, but it's not going to do what you need. Because even if you're in the background, just by yourself in that single seat at a concert, or if you're the one that's walking around the park by yourself, it still makes a difference. Your social presence has an impact. People make room for you as you're going down the aisle and so on. And that's the feedback. That's the loop that doesn't get connected when you're at home. And so the kinds of activities that are going to make a difference for people are the kinds of activities where you do something and there's a response. That's where the electronic world has some potential, because you can get into chat rooms, you can get into interactive activities that are going on the internet, and also I would say that if you have just one person that you can make a phone call to, it's really important to do that. Again, I'm stressing that the length of the phone call or even what you talk about is not nearly so important as that you make that connection. As soon as that connection is there, something good is starting to happen. Also, doing those kinds of activities where it makes a difference what you do, it produces some kind of feedback. I'm hearing from people who said, I've never enjoyed my knitting so much. I used to not knit at all, and then I was watching TV forever, and there's something satisfying about that. Well, what's coming back when you're doing an activity that is potentially is complicated? I know it can get complicated. It can also be very simple and soothing as knitting. Some kind of product is coming out of that. So that's another thing where we can use the psychology of feedback is find a project. I'm going on and on about this, but one of the things we're finding in Canada, the UK, and the United States is that the baking goods are coming off the shelves, and everybody thought there was a shortage of flour. It turns out that there isn't. It's that people are wanting to make a difference in their own lives, and so they're doing more baking and cooking at home, and the distribution is having to send the flour that they used to send to the bakeries and everything. They're having to put that on the shelves, and they're just having to adjust to that because this is what we all need when this is going on.
The same thing is happening around spring cleaning. I don't know about other neighborhoods. I know in my neighborhood, the recycling bin and the dumpster have never been so full all of the time. It's like everybody's clearing out their houses. So it's an interesting thing. But I mean, we've never done a pandemic before, so we're all basically doing the best we can. Why do you suppose people are buying toilet paper, Glenn? Do we know the psychology of toilet paper?
It's such a great question, and I don't claim to have an answer. But what gets grabbed in me is sort of an empathy about, what's the worst experience of shortage that you could imagine. And I encountered one person who had a shopping cart that was absolutely overfilled with liquor.
Yes.
Early on in the pandemic. And he said, everybody's going to think I'm a terrible alcoholic. He says, it's not true. I just have this terrible fear of wanting a glass of wine and not being able to have one. And it got to me so big that I decided that I would just give myself a $500 budget and buy that much wine. And he said, I'm going to put it where I can see it at home. It's going to comfort me. I'm not telling that story to encourage alcohol consumption, but I am telling that story to say that if you find yourself really worried about a particular thing, to kind of take that on as something about your own world, your own psychology, that's just got a little bit hooked into the way that you might worry about the future. Mm-hmm. And be kind and gentle with yourself and say, if it gives you some comfort to have 5 extra loaves of bread in the freezer, that's a way of looking after yourself. It's okay.
So it's kind of
we're not encouraging people to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're not encouraging people to hoard, but I am encouraging people to take good emotional care of themselves, and that begins with acceptance.
It's also, I think, in some ways, this goes to what you're saying, is that this pandemic is completely out of our control. And as we talked about in the last section or segment, it's like this invisible monster is bearing down on us. And so sometimes I wonder if buying the toilet paper is a way of exercising control, or, even if it's, cleaning or doing something that imposes control. You have imposed control on this uncontrollable, unseeable thing that's changed all our lives completely.
In my world, that what you just said is pure gold. The experience of having no control and not even any influence is one of the most difficult experiences you can have.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's
And
frightening. And
one of the stories I like to tell is that during the Korean War, um, the armed forces were just amazed at how much information the enemy at that time, which was North Korea, was able to get out of service people. And they thought they must be doing awful things to them, but what they were doing was not that. They were putting them in situations where they had a lot of responsibility and no control. And they were so desperate for control that they would give up information that, say, under torture, they would have guarded with their lives. It's
Right.
that powerful force.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So one of the hardest questions that came in was that as a parent, let's see, let me read this out. As a parent, how would you deal with your own OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or panic reactions around your children when it comes to germs and viruses and being afraid of them? How can you cope with that without having it impact on your children?
Yeah, what a great question. And what I want to respond to that question with is to say that one of the things that's not going to work for us in these circumstances is trying to just bring the anxiety down. And, I'm going to be less worried about the germs. I'm going to be more worried about this. What we need to do is accept the anxiety. It's based on a very real danger. And accept that. And then move on to say, and I need to pair my ability to recognize danger and to know that that danger, even if I can't see it, is very real. And so that becomes a little bit less about anxiety and a whole lot more about sensible safety. And once we've made that translation, we can also say, now let's get on to how can we relax? So I say, I'm really worried. There's a surface here, and maybe it has bad germs on it. Okay, so you were touching that surface? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go wash our hands. And then let's add something to that, which is to say, yeah, we've done what we need to do in order to make it safe. And I'm going to take 3 long, slow, deep breaths and invite myself to relax. Hope this is making some sense for everybody who's listening to it. It's saying, go ahead, respond to the need for safety, but pair that up with equally need to reassure yourself and give at least as much attention to the idea of inviting yourself to do those things that calm you down. And while I'm talking on and on about this, one of the things we know for sure about the human relaxation response is that one of the most direct ways to that response is changing how you breathe.
Yes.
There is some research that says 80% of stress management tactics have to do with changing your breathing.
And what about children then? I mean, the person is having a reaction and they're breathing and everything, but should we not be concerned about how their children are picking up? Well, I guess they're learning at that point, aren't they? They're learning how to deal with a stress response. So what
Yeah.
that person is doing is role modeling. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, little folks are learning that. And the other kind of general thing we can say about little folks is that you can encourage them to calm down, but at least as effective is with patience and with self-compassion, coach yourself into calming down.
Right.
The
Yeah,
little
and
ones,
that's a part of teaching kids to regulate their emotions as well.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah.
Okay, we need to take a little break. We've been chatting with Glen Grigg over the phone because we do all of this remotely now, not in the station, about how COVID-19 impacts on our mental health. And after this break, we are going to chat about some of the resources that the BC government has put in place to help us get through this. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Yeah. Well, I went up to the store. Man, I wanted to get a few things I could use. Well, I went up to the store now. I want to get a few things I could use. Well, there's not one roll of toilet paper. I got the COVID-19 blues. My baby's stuck in Europe. They just ain't gonna fly that plane. My baby's stuck in Europe. They just ain't gonna fly that plane. I got the COVID-19 blues. Man, I got it in the worst way. My gigs have all been canceled. My bank account took a hit. My gigs have all been canceled. My bank account took a hit. I got the COVID-19 blues. Man, I ain't never even been sick. Yeah. You know, they even canceled hockey. Man, you know that can't be right. They even canceled hockey. Man, you know that just can't be right. I've got the COVID-19 blues, and I've got it day and night. Man, I try really hard, but you know I just can't stay away from the news. Well, I try real hard, babe, but I just can't keep away from all that news. Man, I can't believe I got the dirty, rotten, low-down, health-sucking, money-eating, TP hoarding, no account COVID-19 blues.
Hi everyone, this is Bernadine Fox from Both Sides Now that airs on Vancouver Co-op Radio every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, is an innovative radio station that gives Both Sides Now an hour every week to unpack mental health. We stay on the air by donations from folks like you. So if you can, visit Co-op Radio, all one word.org, that's coopradio.org, and hit the donate button on the top right-hand side of the screen and follow the directions. Or call 604-684-8494 and talk with someone directly. That's 604-684-8494. And then come join us on Both Sides Now, here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. You're listening to Both Sides Now on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, here with my co-host, Glen Grigg, to answer your questions about mental health in the era of COVID-19. I just want to finish up some of the questions. One of the things that, of course, has hit our world, not that it's new, I think it's always been out there, this whole notion of misinformation and disinformation and, you know, people saying wild and crazy things or offering wild and crazy medicine or treatments for COVID-19. But one of the things I just want to talk about, and I think it does have to do with mental health, is critical thinking. And how do you know, where do you go to get useful information about COVID-19 that you can trust?
Yeah. This is a great question. And I would say that misinformation, misleading information is always a problem, but it's a much more serious problem now because every one of us is in a state of sustained uncertainty. We don't know what the answers are. We don't know what our life is going to look like in the future. And so we're doing what we naturally do to adapt to an uncertain situation, which is seek more information. And unfortunately, there are folks who are dealing quite irresponsibly with information, giving us quick cures or doomsday scenarios and that sort of thing. On the other hand, very few of us are well trained epidemiologists and well trained virologists and well trained respirologists and emergency room physicians. We just aren't that. And
Right.
so, one of the things that we need to do right now for ourselves and for our entire community, I would say, is figure out who is it that you're going to have to trust in order to get through this. And one of the people who has really stepped up to be a trustworthy figure, I would say, is a great example here, is Dr. Bonnie Henry.
Oh my God,
Uh,
yeah.
that she gets up and she says, I'm a trained physician. And I don't, under normal circumstances, tell you what to do because that's your business. But this is a time of medical danger. So I'm a public health physician, so I'm going to tell you what to do. And my colleagues, who are biochemists and researchers and people who are experts in the biochemistry of virology and who are looking for vaccines, they're going to speak medical language to me and give me expert advice. And I'm going through all that to say that the source of advice we need are trusted news services and scientific pages. And what we need to examine is, can we trust those people? If you happen to have had disappointing or even harmful interactions with scientific people or professional people, this is a tough time to ask you to give that trust another chance. But it's important that we do that.
I think
If
also though that I just want to cut in here because I believe
Yeah,
that
yeah,
trust really is about trusting ourselves. So if that person, whoever is thinking about who they should be trusting, it really is about trusting yourself to, track down the information and assess that person and whether or not that person has a background that can give you the information that you're wanting. So somebody who's not a medical doctor should not be giving medical advice or and that those are things that you can track down. You can, track down whether a source is real by Googling it and seeing where else it's coming from out there in the world. So just on
yeah,
the issue of trust, I think really trust is about trusting ourselves and making sure that you have the skills to be able to track down what you need to do to know to make a good decision.
yes,
So, but definitely
yeah,
listening to people like epidemiologists and virologists and people like Dr.
yes.
Bonnie Henry.
I want to add to that this is a scientific question. And science figures things out by collecting data, by collecting information. And the information that has to be collected is how many people have the virus. What happens to those people when they have the virus? How does the virus affect different people in different ways? All that information is being collected right now. And so the really responsible scientists and science based professionals are not giving you firm and certain answers. They're saying this is what we need to do now to stay safe. And we need to work as hard as we possibly can about collecting information. And as we collect more and more information, that's going to guide us out of this. And if we make wrong moves, this could be kind of dangerous. So that's a different kind of confidence that we need to put in our own patients and in our own ability to use our intelligence, and our thinking and critical thinking resources to get ourselves through this crisis.
Right. Next question. This person says, I've heard that medication may become scarce. Do I need to be concerned that I won't be able to get my mental health prescriptions filled? And you may or may not be able to answer this, but you do have some out there that other people don't have. And I'm just wondering if you've heard of anything that should make people feel confident that they're going to be able to get their medication, or encourage them to go and get a supply right now.
I'm not an expert in that area, and if you have concerns about that, whoever is wondering about whether that's going to happen, I would say don't hesitate to be in touch with the Ministry of Health. Another place where you can get important information about that is the College of Pharmacologists of British Columbia. But don't sit and worry. Call the Ministry of Health and ask that question. What I can say at this point is that I have some leadership functions in the world of counseling and psychotherapy, and that puts us into interaction with the physicians, the pharmacologists, the nurses, and concerns about medication shortage is not something that's come my way.
Okay.
The province has a long history of being pretty thoughtful about keeping stores and stockpiles. However, it can be quite alarming if you go to a particular pharmacy and they don't have a medication that you depend on for getting through the day. So that concern, depending on what you've been experiencing, is very well founded, and I'd encourage whoever has a concern like that to not hesitate to call on the authorities that are concerned and just say, this is what I'm going through and this is the information I need.
Okay. So the next question kind of feeds into talking about some of the resources that the BC government has put in place to help us mentally work through or cope with this thing that has happened to us, and has happened to all of us at the same time. And the question was, I don't have a counselor right now. If I need to talk to somebody, what do I do? And if I don't have any money, what do I do? Where do I go?
One of the first places that I would advise somebody who says, I need to talk to somebody, and I don't have a big pile of money to hire a therapist. You can go to HealthLink BC, and then within that link you'll find mental health COVID-19, and you're going to find a nice page where you can scroll down, and you'll find yourself described there sometime. It begins with parents and children, then it goes on to teens, then it goes on to adults, and then older adults and caregivers and workers and Indigenous people, and even more resources that you can go down and find something. These are either no cost or very low cost options. The other thing that we sometimes forget is that the people on the basic health line are very well supervised and very well trained, and making contact with somebody is so important.
So did you say the basic health line? Do you mean 811?
Oh, I'm thinking about the word it's going to come to me, the emergency line that we call when we need to talk to somebody.
The crisis line. You mean the crisis line?
Yeah, the crisis line, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a crisis. I forgot the word crisis.
Okay. Because we're all in crisis. It's all become normal. Our crisis is normal now. So
one of the things we also know about the crisis line is that for a while they were having trouble with calls, and they may have yet, but they're going to get to you. They're going to get back to you, and they're actively recruiting, and people who were doing one kind of mental health work are kind of moving over to that. So that situation seems to be well managed and under control.
So what I'm getting from the little bit that I've read is that the BC government has realized that this pandemic is going to impact on our mental health, and that they have been working to put things in place in a myriad of ways to address those mental health concerns. And so when I went and looked, I found things like Bounce Back, which seems to be free for now during
Huh?
COVID. And
Yeah.
it's a cognitive behavioral therapy program that can all be done online, and
Yes.
it has coaching available in it as well. And so people can learn new cognitive behavioral techniques to cope with stress and to cope with what's going on around them. Have you
Yeah.
heard about Bounce Back before?
The bounce back program is a name to me that I know, and I'm also very familiar with the therapy that they bring forward, and it's a very powerful thing to get involved with, because we were talking before on the program about this sense of control. And sometimes we try to directly control our emotions. And it turns out that our emotions just don't respond to that.
Right.
It's like saying, don't be afraid. Well, I am afraid. It turns out that the way we can control our emotions or have at least meaningful influence over them is not by trying to change them directly, but by changing our thoughts. And if we can change our thoughts, and another way to do that is to change our behaviors, especially some kind of habitual behaviors, and to have a systematic guide for doing that, it turns out to be a skill set that, like any important skill, takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of patience to build it up. But once you build that skill up, it belongs to you. Then you've got something good going. Highly recommend it. It's a good way to move forward, and it's something that doesn't require um, to be effective. It doesn't require a whole lot of face-to-face time. So that's what
Right.
makes it particularly appropriate right now.
The other thing, of course, that's happening is that counselors and mental health organizations are providing online sessions so that you don't have to go into offices. They're virtual, they're online, but that means that the sessions are continuing. I suspect you have been doing that yourself in your private practice.
I've been doing that in my practice, and I've also been working with the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association and with the BC Association of Clinical Counselors, just being part of the effort to get more and more capacity built up, that we're getting more and more counselors online doing those online sessions. It's
Right.
not the same as being face to face, there's nothing like that, but it's pretty doggone good.
Right.
And the people who are experiencing it, by and large, are saying, "Wow, that was way more than what I expected was possible over an internet connection."
Right.
I'm going to say something else about this in case people are hesitating. The standard that's being set for internet counseling is to use uh, platforms that are like Zoom and like Skype, but they're specifically for healthcare providers. And that means that the visuals and the audio is encrypted from end to end. It's completely secure. Nobody can listen in. So there's a very high level of reassurance of confidentiality and privacy. The exception is that for some folks, it's hard to find a spot at home where you can just be with a tablet or a laptop or a desktop computer, and nobody else can see and nobody else can hear. So it takes some thought in some circumstances to find a way to connect with a counselor by those means.
Thank you, Glenn, for spending the time to answer all of those questions for us. If our audience has more questions, can we get you back to answer those as well?
This has been a delight, and we're all in this together. And for me, the experience has been connecting with the community, and thanks to all our listeners for being with us at this time.
Absolutely. So don't go away. I'm going to come back with a few more resources for you and let you know where you can find them on our website. We'll be right back.
The First Nations Health Managers Association sends a heartfelt thank you to all of the hardworking health directors and frontline workers. We are in need of credible information as we face the COVID-19 pandemic together. We invite you to join us every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific for a virtual town hall. We will host various leaders to provide information and answer your questions. Mark it on your calendar, send us your questions, and see you on the live stream at ihtoday.ca.
You're listening to Both Sides Now on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. I'm Bernadine Fox, and I've been talking with our co-host, therapist Glen Grigg, to answer some questions you all sent in about how the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting on our mental health. As I promised, I'm about to give you some resources for coping with the COVID-19 pandemic and the social distancing that we have to do. Got that pen? None of us have lived through a pandemic. The BC government has spent some time putting together resources for us to help cope with this surreal time. Most of these resources can be found on the BC government website at www, that's a number 2, www.gov.bc.ca. Once there, you can search for virtual mental health supports or COVID-19, and you will find a page that outlines most of what I'm going to tell you now. Glenn mentioned our crisis line. If you're feeling suicidal, you can call 1-800-SUICIDE. For those of you who have cell phones without letters on the buttons, that is 1-800-784-2433. Alternatively, you can text CONNECT to 686868 and chat by text. If you find yourself in need of emotional support, information, or help finding resources, you can call the Mental Health Support Line at 310-6789. That's 310-6789. There's also a culturally aware crisis line for Indigenous peoples. It is 1-800-588-8717. That's 1-800-588-8717. And just a reminder, I will be posting this information on our website at www.bothsidesnowbc.com. BC has also put together courses that are offered for free for folks. We talked about Bounce Back. It contains online video and phone-based coaching, along with a skills-building program teaching cognitive behavioral techniques. These are particularly useful for folks dealing with depression, anxiety, or stress. I will provide a link on our website's resource page for Bounce Back. Living Life to the Full is another course offered online. It is also free, and it's 8 weeks long. It offers peer support and skill building to cope with stress and problem solving. Why Mind, that's Y as in yellow, Mind, is a 7-week program online, and it's free starting May 2020 for young people to cope with stress and anxiety. There is virtual community counseling at low or no cost. Students can reach out to Here to Talk. That's Here, the number 2, Talk, Here to Talk. Available 24/7 by appointment, phone, or online chat. Contact information will be listed on our website. Parents of young children can reach out for assistance to the Child and Youth Mental Health Community-based teams or the Parent Peer Support. Contact information for these will also be listed on our website. Parent Support Services is a nonprofit organization that provides support for parents. Their number is 1-877-3459-777. They have virtual parent support groups happening now. They also run the Grandparents Raising Grandkids Support. Contact the GRG support line at grgline@parentsupportbc.ca or call 604-558-4740 or 1-855-474-9777. They have specific hours, but leave a message and someone will get back to you. There are peer support folks available, along with folks ready to help you navigate systems that might be overwhelming. If you're not sure how you're coping, the BC government has provided an assessment tool that you can self-administer. I'll provide a link for this tool on our website. The BC Psychological Association is providing free mental health first aid. You can reach them by calling 604-827-0847. That's 604-827-0847. Frontline healthcare workers can reach out for support 24/7, And that contact information will be on our website as well. Along with these, there are virtual peer support services, virtual clinics for youth through the Foundry, and all of that is just the beginning. BC has established a plethora of organizations for folks to reach out to find support for what you're experiencing in this stressful time. There is choice available without cost. Again, this information will be accessible through our website, www.bothsidesnowbc.com, on the resource page, but also on the BC government website under COVID-19 provincial support. We will get through this pandemic together. Both Sides Now is here to help us all do that. Send us your questions and we will continue to find you answers. Both Sides Now is dedicating this episode to Pat Capone. Pat was a well-known fixture in the Canadian mental health community. She spent her life fighting for recognition that mental health consumers were viable individuals with potential and were able to provide valuable input into how resources were put in place for them. Her 2003 memoir, Beyond the Crazy House, explored her life and made a case for how and why Canada's mental health system needed to change. With a diagnosis of terminal cancer, Pat opted for assisted dying on April 6, 2020. If you want to know more about Pat Capone, check out a documentary entitled What Riva Taught Me on YouTube. We'll post a link to this documentary on our website. My thanks to our co-host, Glen Grigg, for allowing us to pick his brain for this hour, and to Steve for operating our sound remotely. Canada's own Rob Bentley brought us the COVID blues, and Sherry Allrech, as always, sings us into and out of this show each week. But most importantly, our thanks goes out to you for joining our conversation today. Stay safe out there. If you have questions or feedback about this program or want to share your story or have something to say to us, we want to hear from you. You can reach us by email, bothsidesnow@coopradio.org, or via Twitter @bothsidesnowbc. This is Bernadine Fox. We'll be back next week. Until then. I can't seem to find my way under or over or through. Just when I'm ready to give up the fight, there you are when we turn out the lights. And it's alright, it's alright. Don't you worry, it'll be alright. Why do I always believe it when you tell me everything's gonna be alright? Surely you don't have all of the facts. You could be just making it up. Why don't I ever think of that? It's some kind of magic in the words that you breathe, saying, baby, take it from me. It's alright, it's alright.